The 2024 annual meetings of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank Group kick off yesterday, Monday, October 21, and will conclude on Saturday, October 26. The meetings take place against a global economic backdrop facing a number of triggers causing uncertainty, and 2024 nears its end. Arise Business Correspondent Rotus Oddiri is in Washington, D.C. and now joins us. Rotus, what did IMF MD Christina Georgieva point out in a tepid outlook for the global economy?
Good morning to you, Rufai, Dr. Basi, Ayo, and all our viewers. Well, Georgieva was basically saying that we shouldn't be celebrating interest rates decelerating in parts of the world. She's still saying that there is a very high debt and low growth. And when you've got that combination, it reads for a tepid outlook for the global economy, because high debt, of course, is going to impact the amount of infrastructure developments that can take place across a number of countries, because interest payments are eating up so much of revenues. She also pointed to a lot of geopolitical concerns or tensions around the world. We all know, as you three have been reporting daily on what's been going on in Israel, Gaza, also what's happening with Russia, Ukraine. And even just yesterday, you had Vladimir Putin trying to flex muscles with another BRICS summit that he wants to do to thumb his nose to the West. So you put all that together, and then of course you've got, even though equity markets are pretty high, not everyone has involved in the market. So there is cause for a cautious outlook in the future, and she's just pretty much saying that there needs to be all hands on deck with respect to the discussions that are taking place here. And then of course there's the climate issue as well. So a lot of that fed into her outlook for what's going on.
All right, so share with us, Rotus, what were some of the highlights from activities on day one?
Yeah, there was a lot. IMF Managing Director Christina Georgieva kicked things off with a discussion on women, power, and leadership with Claire Shipman. Claire Shipman is an author. She used to be a national senior correspondent for Good Morning America. They talked about the fact that you've got to diversify your workforce, diversify leadership by having women involved. Then they went into a number of things called the Analytical Corner. The Analytical Corner is a further drill down into a number of economic issues. So, for instance, the Analytical Corner had a session on monetary policy in the United States and the transmission of the monetary policy into sectors of the economy. For instance, asset quality of a bank improves when you've got lower interest rates because there's a higher demand for loans because money is cheaper. On the flip side, higher interest rates improve net interest margins for banks. The difference between the interest that they pay on loans out to customers and also the interest that they pay on securities, the interest they pay on accounts, interest-bearing accounts for customers versus the interest that they earn on loans that they give out to customers. And then also demand for vehicle loans, mortgages, and the like. So that transmission mechanism from monetary policy to the wider economy, that was discussed. That was the Western Hemisphere and Research Department of the IMF. Then you had the Fiscal Affairs Department of the IMF that had an analytical corner on the nexus between climate change and monetary policy using Central Asia and Middle East. And then my favorite session from yesterday was on Africa and African youth. The Africa department had an analytical corner on what was called the ticking time bomb, how we need to create more jobs for African youth, and particularly making the transition from menial jobs like subsistence agriculture over to high-level jobs in high-level manufacturing and also software development and so on and so forth. So there was a lot that was discussed in terms of those particular segments that took place yesterday.
Well, Rotus, good to see you back on duty. But I just made one observation now. The Arise microphone logo is upside down. Maybe when you have time, you quickly adjust it. We stand very straight in this station. But, to go back to what you said about Christina, the other point is also about the American election. And she's hoping that the candidates, Kamala Harris and Trump, whoever wins, will take a very pragmatic approach. But let's talk about sub-Saharan Africa, particularly Nigeria. How is Nigeria's monetary policy, along with other nations in sub-Saharan Africa, under the spotlight this year? These African countries having liquidity issues.
Yeah, so I mean, Dr. Basi, you've talked about this a lot. We've talked about it on the show in terms of the monetary policy path of the Central Bank of Nigeria and what that means for the cost of borrowing for individuals and businesses versus, trying to fight inflation. Flying into DC, I had a layover in Istanbul, in Turkey. They've got a massive airport there, but you've got, every store you can think of in the airport, but things are very expensive because over in Turkey, the lira has depreciated against the dollar, and also their monetary policy rate is at 50%. It's one of the highest in the world. So when you think about that transmission and what it means for costs, it's high. Same thing in Nigeria. We're not as high as Turkey at 50%. We're at 22%. But the key issue here is, has monetary policy been able to bring down inflation? Olaimi Cardoso has gotten a lot of praise while he's been here. Of course, there's a delegation from Nigeria here with respect to staying the course of monetary policy, with respect to trying to reduce money supply. I think Tilewa Adebajo put out a note of the CFG advisory yesterday saying that money supply is one of the big issues in Nigeria. So how do you address that? Well, you have to try to reduce that by increasing the cost of money so that you reduce its demand. So things like those types of topics are what are being discussed here. I think there's going to be a discussion, a roundtable with a number of finance ministers and central bank governors later today. But yeah, Nigeria and a number of other countries, emerging markets in particular, will be in focus when they discuss monetary policy.
Right, so what can we expect from day 2? And how are you coping? It's 3 a.m. I hear in Washington, D.C. as we speak.
Yeah, that's right. I even saw, look, there are people jogging here. I go jogging, but not this early, so I'm inspired. But yeah, we're up and early. Things will be kicking off, I think, about 7 a.m. You've got a number of discussions going on today, Rufai. There will be climate discussions. We saw protesters yesterday that were at the front of the building talking about fossil fuels. I know today the front cover of today's This Day newspaper, Nigeria's newspaper of record, that Vimbai already went through. There's a talk on trying to ramp up another additional 1 million barrels per day of oil in Nigeria over the next 12 months. So climate financing is going to be discussed. Renewable energy, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, is going to be discussed here today. Also, cross-border payments. How do you use technology to improve cross-border payments for emerging markets? Also, a number of gender diversity topics. And also, there will be an analytical corner on particularly reforms. How reforms across different economies actually translates for a better life for citizens, keeping in mind that there is, of course, a tough period of time as we are going through in Nigeria and a number like Argentina and a number of other nations. And then also the IMF financing for countries, how that's, translates into better funding for those particular nations. As you know, Argentina, Kenya, Ethiopia, Tunisia, a number of countries have taken, they've taken facilities from the IMF. So that discussion is also going to be put on the table. Is this money actually being put to work and helping out these countries that are getting this funding? So a lot to talk about.
All right, thank you so much. Looks like a packed day 2. We look forward to all the details when you give us the roundup of activities. Thank you, Rotus.